The fluorescent lights buzzed gently overhead, casting a soft white glow across the near-empty hospital waiting room. The walls were painted a muted beige, their dullness only broken by faded posters reminding visitors to breathe deep and stay strong. The air smelled faintly of disinfectant and something old, like time itself had passed through this place and decided to sit a while. Dwayne Johnson sat quietly in the farthest corner, shoulders hunched beneath a grey hoodie. A baseball cap shaded his eyes. No security, no assistant, no smile for fans, just a man, alone with something pressing in his chest, and not the kind of pressure he could deadlift away. His phone buzzed twice. He didn't look. Whatever was waiting there, deals, scripts, world-saving franchise opportunities, it could wait. Right now, the only thing he was trying to carry was his breath. It had started weeks ago, a tightness just below his sternum, subtle. Then a heaviness in his limbs during training, winded too quickly. He told himself it was age, maybe stress or overtraining. But he knew his body better than anyone else, and something had changed. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, hands clasped. Across from him, a teenage boy sat scrolling on his phone, oblivious. An elderly couple dozed off together, their hands still joined. And behind the plexiglass reception window, a nurse called out names, her voice rising and falling like background. Static. Mr. D. Carter, someone called. Not him. He pulled the hoodie further over his face. The irony wasn't lost on him. Being called The Rock for decades, yet sitting here now feeling like sand, slowly slipping through the cracks. What? If something's really wrong? He hadn't told anyone, not his publicist, not even his mother, his daughters. No, not yet. Let them keep seeing their father as invincible, not like this. The automatic door opened with a mechanical sigh, letting in the sound of passing traffic and the cold breath of outside wind. Dwayne barely looked up. A nurse stepped out, clipboard in hand. She glanced at the room. Dwayne Johnson, she said, uncertain, like the name didn't quite match the man slouched in that shadowed corner. He stood slowly, tall and solid, yet somehow smaller today, quieter. As he followed her down the sterile hallway, his footsteps echoed behind him, not heavy, not heroic, just human. Pain was never the enemy. Silence was, and today the silence was about to end. The hallway leading to the doctor's office felt longer than it should have, like time itself had stretched, unwilling to let the next moment arrive. Dwayne walked behind the nurse in silence, his boots soundless against the polished tile. The corridor smelled of lemon cleanser and anticipation. He could hear the distant beep of monitors, life ticking forward or backward, depending on where you stood. Room 318, a small placard on the door, no applause, no red carpet, just a sterile room waiting to rewrite everything. The door creaked open and the doctor stood there already. Dr. Malik, mid-50s, eyes kind but unreadable. He offered a small smile, but didn't move toward Dwayne. That, more than anything, said everything. Dwayne nodded and stepped in, lowering his hood but keeping the cap on. He took a seat. The leather of the chair sighed beneath his weight. The doctor didn't speak right away. He tapped the tablet on his desk and pulled up scans. MRI slices glowing softly on the screen like ghosted cross-sections of Dwayne's own chest. The air seemed to hold its breath. I wanted to go over your results personally, Dr. Malik began. Dwayne didn't blink. He just studied the faint red pulse line on the image. There's an anomaly in the lower ventricle. It's genetic, extremely rare. You've likely had it dormant for years, maybe decades. But now, it's progressing. Still, Dwayne didn't speak. Dr. Malik hesitated, like the next words weighed more than his medical degree could carry. There's a 20% chance of survival without immediate aggressive intervention, and even with it, it's not guaranteed. The words dropped, like stones into a still lake. No splash, just sinking, a beat passed. Then two. Dwayne finally exhaled. Slow, quiet, controlled. His eyes didn't move from the glowing screen. "You're saying, I've been walking around with a ticking clock inside me." Dr. Malik lowered the tablet. "Yes." A silence followed, thicker than before, not dramatic, not loud, just devastating. He nodded slowly, almost absent-mindedly, like the news hadn't landed yet, but it had. Deep. He leaned forward, clasping his hands together, elbows on knees, stared at the floor for a long while before speaking again. "You ever seen a mountain break?" he asked, voice barely above a whisper. Dr. Malik looked. Confused, Dwayne's eyes were far away now. "It doesn't roar, doesn't scream, it just gives, one crack at a time." And then, with a faint trace of dry humor, "So, I'm the mountain." Dr. Malik didn't correct him. Dwayne stood up slowly, taller than the room, stronger than the walls, and yet somehow as fragile in that moment, exposed. He turned toward the door, hand on the knob. "How do you tell the world the rock is crumbling?" he murmured, and then paused. "Even mountains fracture quietly from the inside." He left the room without another word. The house was still, not quiet, still. The kind of stillness that didn't just settle on rooms, but settled inside them, like dust collecting in corners. You hadn't looked at in years. Dwayne stepped through the front door, shutting it behind him like a man locking out the wind. No crew, no echo of laughter. Just the sound of his boots on the hardwood floor and the distant hum of the refrigerator. He didn't go to the kitchen. He walked straight to the mirror. It stood at the end of the hallway, full length, framed in walnut. The same mirror he'd used every morning before going on set, before stepping into arenas, before facing cameras. But today, he didn't see the rock, not the blockbuster hero, not the brand. He saw his eyes, tired, focused, searching. His hand came up slowly, resting on the frame, knuckles grazing the reflection. His voice, when it came, was soft, almost like it belonged to someone else. What do they remember when you're not there to remind them? Flash, a memory. He was 8, barefoot on a cracked sidewalk. His father's shadow loomed tall in the sun, yelling for him to keep pushing, push-ups in the gravel. His palms burned, his arms trembled, his dad didn't bend. Pain is the path to respect, son. You want to be seen? Earn it. Flash, another memory, 17, standing backstage at a high school wrestling match, nervous, the crowd chanting someone else's name, then a win, his first. The crowd flipped, cheered, called him king. He smiled, but inside he had no idea what to do with that kind of love. Flash 30, backstage at WrestleMania, sweat dripping, cameras flashing outside. But in the dressing room, silence. Just him, staring into a bathroom mirror, wondering who the hell he was when no one was watching. Back in the present, his hand dropped. He walked to his desk and opened the drawer, pulled out his phone, sat down slowly, the leather of the chair creaking as if it too had grown old with him. He opened the front camera. It showed his face again, less filtered, less lit, just human. He hit record. There was a long pause before he spoke. "Hey, baby girl," his throat tightened. "If you're seeing this, something happened. And I'm sorry I didn't say more before." He exhaled. "I've spent most of my life showing people how strong I am, holding things together, carrying the weight. But what I didn't tell anyone is I was afraid. Afraid that one day I'd be gone and people would only remember the shoulders, not the soul." A tear slid down his cheek. He didn't wipe it away. "I need you to know you were my legacy, not the movies, not the titles. You." He smiled through the tremble. "I hope you live loud. I hope you cry when you need to. And I hope you never carry silence the way I did." He ended the recording, stared at the screen for a long time, then whispered, almost to himself, "Strength was never in the lifting. It was in the letting go." The rain had slowed to a mist by the time Dwayne pulled off the two-lane road, headlights cutting through the fog like they were searching for something. Maybe he was. Ahead stood a crooked little diner, neon sign flickering with half-dead letters that spelled out "Eat here" like a dare, not a suggestion. He parked the truck, killed the engine, and sat for a moment in the stillness. His hoodie hung low, hands resting on the steering wheel. His breath fogged the glass in slow, uneven bursts, not from exhaustion, from what hadn't been said, what hadn't been faced. He stepped inside. The bell over the door jingled like it hadn't been touched in decades. Inside, the place smelled of old coffee, fryer oil, and something warm he couldn't name. Booths were cracked at the seams. A jukebox sat in the corner like an old friend nobody spoke to anymore. He took a seat near the window. Not by design, just instinct. Keep the back to the wall. Watch the exits. Something he'd learned when life was harder and money was shorter. A young waitress approached, early 30s, hair in a tired ponytail, eyes older than her face. Her apron was stained. Her limp was slight. But Dwayne noticed. He noticed everything now. She didn't smile. Just held a notepad like a weapon. "You want coffee or just somewhere to hide?" she asked flatly. Dwayne blinked. "Coffee's fine." She turned without writing it down. Minutes passed. Rain tapped the glass like it was trying to join him. When she returned with the mug, he reached for the sugar packet. Hands slightly unsteady. The fork beside his plate slipped and clattered to the floor. The noise echoed in the small room. She rolled her eyes. "Guess even the big guys drop things sometimes," she said with a smirk. "Need me to feed you too?" He looked up slowly. She didn't flinch. For a moment, ego stirred. That old thing. The part of him that could silence. A room with one glare, the rock, the star, the powerhouse. But that part of him didn't rise this time. Instead, he watched her limp away, shoulders hunched beneath the weight of unseen battles. From his booth, he could see the way she covered her wrist when she thought no one was looking. The way she rubbed the same spot on her hip between orders. The way her eyes scanned the door like she was hoping someone would not show up. He saw it all, and something inside him softened. When he finished eating, he asked for the check. She dropped it without a word. Dwayne slid his card across the table, then hesitated, reached into his wallet, pulled out a pen. On the back of the receipt he scribbled 6 words. "You saw through me, thank you." Then he added the tip, $10,000. He walked out without waiting for a reaction. Outside, the mist had stopped. The air smelled like earth, fresh, grounded. Back in the truck, he sat for a long while staring at the diner through the windshield. That girl. She hadn't been impressed. She hadn't been afraid. She hadn't played along. And for the first time in a long time, someone had looked at Dwayne Johnson and seen a man, not a myth. He smiled, small and real. Sometimes the loudest truth comes from someone who doesn't say please. The gym was empty, save for the low hum of fluorescent lights and the rhythmic squeak of steel on rubber. It was after midnight, his usual hour now. No crowds, no eyes, no noise, just iron, air, and the ache in his chest that still hadn't been named aloud. Dwayne Johnson stood before the rack, hoodie damp with sweat, hands chalked, breath sharp. He wrapped his fingers around the cold barbell, but his reflection in the mirror stopped him. Not the body. That was still there. But the fire behind his eyes. It flickered. Just one more set, he muttered to himself, half a prayer, half defiance. He bent, lifted, and the world tilted. The bar slipped. His legs gave out. His vision narrowed to a pinpoint of light. And then, dark. The EMTs came. Fast. The security cameras caught it all. Paparazzi caught the rest. Flashes bursting like lightning as paramedics wheeled him out, unconscious, oxygen mask pressed to his face. By morning, the video was everywhere. Dwayne Johnson collapses. Secret illness? The rock crumbles. The headlines screamed louder than his body ever had, but inside the hospital, the noise stopped. White walls, white sheets, monitors blinking like quiet metronomes. Dwayne lay still, the world narrowed to one square room, and the relentless tick of borrowed time. When he woke, it wasn't strength he searched for, it was peace. His first words weren't to the nurses or the doctors, they were whispered into the air like confessions. "I'm sorry," it came again, softer this time. "Mom, I'm sorry I didn't come home for your birthday. I just didn't want you to see me weak." A pause. "Danny, I'm sorry I shut you out when you told me you were struggling. I thought pushing you was love." Another pause. His hand reached for the hospital pen beside the tray, shaky, unsteady, but alive. He asked for paper. Over the next few days, between treatments and silence, Dwayne wrote, not emails, not tweets, letters, long ones, in his own hand, each one folded, carefully addressed to someone who had touched his life, and someone he had in some way forgotten to touch back. To his first trainer, to his college roommate, to his ex-wife, to a grip on a movie set whose name he never learned. Each letter was a piece of armor he removed. Each apology, a weight lifted. Healing began, not in his blood, but in his soul. He didn't ask for forgiveness. He gave it. He didn't beg for time. He respected it. And when a nurse asked one morning how he was feeling, he smiled faintly and said, "I'm not fighting anymore. I'm listening. It's not about the fight. It's about who you become. When the fight ends, and this man, the one in the bed, scarred, silent, writing in ink instead of iron, was becoming someone new. The hospital chapel was empty, lit by a single stained glass window that washed the floor in fractured gold and blue. It smelled of old wood and whispered prayers. Some answered, some not. The pews were worn from the weight of grief, faith, and hope that had passed through for years without announcement. Dwayne entered quietly, moving like a man who didn't want to disturb. The silence only joined it. He hadn't been in a chapel in years, not since his dad's funeral, not since the world told him he had to be the strong one, and he believed them. He sat in the back pew, elbows on knees, head bowed, not out of reverence, but because the weight on his shoulders finally became too much to carry upright. His heart monitor had been stable all day, but inside something was unraveling. That's when he noticed the sound, a slow, sweeping noise. A broom brushing across stone. From behind the altar, an old janitor emerged, thin, weathered, his uniform a little too big, his eyes too wise to pretend not to notice. "You here for the light or the quiet?" the old man asked. Dwayne blinked. "I don't know." The man nodded like he understood exactly. "I come here when I miss my boy," he said softly, returning to his broom. He was 16. Cancer didn't care. Dwayne looked at him, something catching in his chest. "I'm sorry." The janitor shrugged. "We all lose something. Question is, what do we do with the empty space it leaves behind?" A long silence passed between them. The chapel listened. Finally, Dwayne spoke. "How do you accept the end?" The janitor leaned on his broom, eyes meeting Dwayne's with the kind of grace that comes only from surviving sorrow. "You stop calling it the end," he said gently. "It's a return to stillness, to truth, to what matters." Dwayne swallowed hard. His throat ached. His body had been bruised before, beaten, broken, but never this kind of break. The kind that didn't come from impact, but from within. His voice cracked as he whispered, "I don't know how to be small." The janitor smiled faintly. "That's where all the real things grow." Dwayne bowed his head again, this time not from weight, but willingness. And in that sacred silence, he prayed. Not for strength, not for miracles, not even for more time. Just for peace. Peace with who he was. Peace with what he'd carried, peace with letting go, and somewhere deep in that stillness, something shifted. That night, back in his hospital room, the nurse checked his vitals and paused. Heart rate steady, breathing smoother, color warmer. She noted it quietly, not yet ready to say the word turning point. But something had changed, not healed, just different. Sometimes you survive by surrendering. The air was crisp that morning, early, light casting long shadows across the sidewalk as Dwayne stepped out of the hospital doors. No cameras, no reporters. Just a man wrapped in a soft grey hoodie, walking not toward a stage, but into something quieter, truer. His breath steamed gently in the cold. For the first time in months, it wasn't labored. It wasn't counted between IVs and machines. It was his again. He didn't call his agent, didn't announce his release to the world. No grand return, no headlines. That version of him had been shed like old skin. Instead, he hailed a cab, told the driver a simple address, a youth shelter in a forgotten part of the city, a place that didn't care about resumes or red carpets, a place full of kids who'd seen more endings than beginnings. When he walked through the doors, heads turned. A few gasped, recognizing the frame before the face. One kid muttered, "That's him," but no one shouted. No one asked for a selfie. He didn't give a speech on strength. He didn't talk about fame, movies, or the grind. Instead, he sat on a folded chair in a circle of worn-out couches and dented chairs. Just another voice. He looked at the group. Young, tired eyes, some skeptical, some too numb to pretend. He cleared his throat, then pulled back his hoodie. The scar peeked out from the collar of his shirt. A raw reminder that even stone could split. "I used to think strength was what you showed," he began. "The lifting, the smiling, the pushing through, but that's just noise." He paused, meeting their eyes. "Real strength? That's what you hide. The pain, the fear, the feeling that you don't belong anywhere anymore." The room was silent. He smiled. "A real one, small, worn, earned. You're stronger than what they see," he told them. "Way stronger." He stood, gave a nod, and walked out the same way he came in, quietly. There was no limo waiting, just morning light and the slow rhythm of footsteps on cold pavement. He was never just muscle, he was always heart, just waiting to be heard.